Honey. Hi, guys. Orientation is locked. Rotate device back. What does that mean?
Well,
Well, I know we're live. Hi, guys. Sorry, we're just trying to figure all of this out, and we've got a little bit of a.
a few little challenges.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Kid,
okay. We'll eventually
don't
get the
breathe.
technical. We'll eventually get the technical stuff sorted.
Exactly.
At least,
Oh,
hopefully that. I don't know how much of that ended up on there,
I don't
but
know. You,
hopefully it was comedic.
yeah, I'm sure it was a good introduction to how clutchy I can be.
I was just thinking Keystone Cop style.
Yes, very
That was
much
good.
so. So I really would like to be in landscape mode, but I don't know why it's not doing that for us. But oh well, let's talk about ego
We will
death.
figure it out.
Yeah. Last week we talked about the divine masculine awakening and what that looks like. And so, that's not a topic that you can easily discuss in one video. There's so many different parts of it. So this week we're tackling ego death and what that looks like and how that's all part of the awakening process. Um, so what are you seeing there, honey?
Nothing. I was just trying to read the little tiny lines about
Oh yeah.
privacy at the bottom. It's okay.
um,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. So I channeled again the Q&A sort of style with my Council of Light. My Council of Light is just my team of guides, and that's kind of what they've named themselves. So, and I know other people channel the Council of Light, and it's different, beings, whatever. We all fit. We all have our own thing. It doesn't matter what we call stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, the many faces of ego. That's where we're at here. So I'll start a little bit with the what I channeled from the guides about the many faces of ego, and then we're going to take turns kind of going through the different masks that ego wears.
Hmm.
So
And
yeah.
it doesn't. And the ones we go through doesn't mean that it's us. Sometimes.
Oh, I'll let
Although,
you know.
although sometimes it
I'll
might
let you
be.
know if it's me for sure. Because you know what? Whatever. So here's what they say: ego is not a villain. It is a shapeshifter. It wears many masks, many faces. What are you doing?
Go ahead.
And it appears differently depending on the soul's journey, the wound it guards, and the illusion it clings to. If you were to see ego energetically, it would rarely look monstrous. In fact, it often tries to appear helpful or protective. Yet underneath the surface, it trembles in fear of its own irrelevance. Indeed. So here are some of the many common faces that ego wears.
The protector looks like a stern guardian at the gates, always on alert. It whispers, "Don't trust them. They'll hurt you like last time." It keeps you small in the name of safety. It means well, but it builds walls instead of bridges.
Yeah. And that is both men and women in a lot of ways. I think we see it a lot more in men because it's that masculine protector thing, right? Like you
Well, yes, and it, but it's also, I think a lot of it also it comes to, um, feeling insecure because you talk about the protector, but it's the protector in the context of protecting you from your own insecurities.
yeah,
So yeah, definitely we feel that, or we feel that. Yes, we feel that, but we also see that in everybody,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because again, the only people who don't have some type of insecurity are either amazingly ascended individuals or potentially mentally disturbed people. So, right,
yeah.
we all have our insecurities.
Mm-hmm. For sure. The next mask, and I know I'm guilty big time of this one, is the performer. Wears a dazzling costume, constantly adjusting to please the crowd. It says, "Look at me. Am I enough yet?" It thrives on validation, applause, and identity. It fears being invisible or unchosen. So I have found, like, throughout my entire life, I adjust to the crowd,
Hmm.
sometimes bending my own boundaries, um, maybe even in the past, morals, just to fit in. Not proud of that, but I'm also over the over the whole shaming of that. So yeah, so the performer, you know, somebody who puts on an act just to fit in somewhere and does whatever needs to,
Hmm.
or is whatever the people need in order to.
Yeah, I think about it at work. I mean, it's the meeting after the meeting.
Yeah.
And so, during the meeting, everybody's saying what they need to say, doing the right thing, and then after the meeting, they have a meeting to discuss what's wrong with everything that the meeting was just about. And again, it's because it's that people pleasing, it's that wanting to be recognized and not willing to be honest about how they're feeling,
Yeah.
right? Or what they feel is the best alternative.
Yeah, for sure.
So the next one is the cynic. And the cynic appears calm and rational, but cold. It says, that won't work. People don't change. You're being naive. This version of ego is the wounded realist, afraid to hope because hope has hurt before.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everybody's felt that, dealt with that at times.
I think we all know somebody like that in our lives,
Mm.
and you know, I find it hard to be around um, anymore because it's just a big old hard shell
Yeah.
that they've put up to protect themselves. But
There is no solution a problem cannot be found with,
oh
right?
wow, that sounds really smart.
Sounds smart. I copied somebody. Somebody told it to me at work.
uh, all right. Oh, so now we're on to the rebel. So I've seen these ones too. Clothed in fire and independence. It says, I don't need anyone. I'll do it my way. It is the mask of self reliance rooted in fear of abandonment. It resists surrender even when the soul longs to soften. So, you know, that's that person who has been repeatedly wounded or hurt and says, mm-mm, up goes the shell, the wall. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm independent and I'm going to wear that and I'm going to make it look like I'm really strong and nobody can penetrate me. But really, I'm just crumbling and crying on the inside.
It's interesting. It makes me think of teenage years,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Where
The rebel.
we're trying to find our identity and we're forcing it because we're not quite sure what to do, and it just ends up creating a lot of challenge in our
Yeah,
life,
yeah,
right?
for sure. For sure. Yeah.
The authority, dressed in robes of certainty. It says, I already know. The face of the ego often appears in spiritual circles, hiding behind knowledge, but blocking wisdom. It keeps the heart closed under the illusion of mastery. And again, like all of these, I mean, I think we all know people who act in that way.
Mm-hmm.
After all, they are the expert. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are,
Yeah.
they are the expert.
They are the authority on that, and whether they embody that or they just talk it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Well, and again, it's another type of defense mechanism. All these are defense mechanisms, right?
Yeah.
And
That's,
so,
yeah.
so yeah, it's the person who, the more wrong they appear to be, the louder they speak about how they're right. I'm sure nobody can think of anybody, say, in politics that would, be like that. We'll just leave it like that. We won't name names. Sorry, Joe.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah, it is the illusion of mastery. I like that. So it's like, I know more than you do. And that's where I'm just going to land there and I'm going to argue my point, but I'm not actually going to live these points. It's kind of, yeah. So be careful, be careful with the people who dress in the robes of spirituality but don't actually walk the talk. So yeah,
Hmm.
that's the authority. The martyr. We all know this person too. A lot of people in our families, everybody's family, not just mine. Wears the wounds like medals. It says, I do everything and no one sees me. No one helps. And it keeps the soul in cycles of exhaustion and resentment, fearing that rest means worthlessness. So it's that constant striving to prove the worth and doing everything for everybody to the exhaustion of your own soul. And then finding yourself in such deep resentment that you end up blowing up at people, and then everybody's like, what, you wanted to do it all for me, I just let you. Kind of thing. So that's there's one of those people.
And the shadow child, small and trembling, hiding in the corner. It says, please don't see me. I'm too much. I'm not enough. The version is often forgotten, but very powerful. It is the ego formed in childhood, still waiting to be chosen.
Mm.
And I'm sure everybody can think of someone who is that quiet, meek, understated person
Piglet.
who doesn't have much to say. Yeah,
Yeah.
Piglet from the 100 Acre Wood.
Yeah, I find I've always found Winnie the Pooh series very interesting because each character is definitely an archetype of
Mm-hmm.
some sort, and yeah, there's a few piglets
Yeah,
around
in the
that,
world.
yeah,
Yeah.
that just they cower or they hide behind somebody who's got a little more strength, and yeah, but yeah. So those are the main masks that ego presents itself as. And then they go on to say, if you could truly see ego in all of its forms, you would not hate it, you would embrace it. Not to empower it, but to love it into integration. For the ego is not your enemy, it is your wounded protector. It is your nervous system's survival language, and when loved, it softens and allows the soul to lead. So, what does ego look like? It looks like a child wearing too many costumes, trying too hard, longing for safety, and forgetting that it is already loved. Yeah.
Sort of like getting lost in the hats you wear in your life. I like your
Bad hair day.
hat.
Or
Yeah.
beach hair day. How's that?
Yes. Well, yeah, I'm not sure if that's the exact type of
Oh, that's
hat,
not the
but
hat you're talking about?
no,
Oh,
no, I
okay.
was thinking more hats in the context of them being roles that we play, right?
Yes.
Mother, father, husband, like, director, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever the context is within your life and all those different roles. And, these different archetypes of ego getting lost in those so that you kind of forget who you are.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're not, say for me, I'm not Jason. I'm, you know, director of facilities, or I'm the husband, or, I'm the father,
You're the
all of those
protector. You're the.
different archetypes.
Yep.
And so getting lost in those rather than being true to who I am, because who I am, yes, it includes those roles that I do, but there's a lot more to it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
as there is with everybody.
Absolutely. So, what does ego death look like and feel like?
Well, it looks like sitting in a room you once found comfort in and suddenly feeling like you no longer belong there.
Yep.
Watching pieces of your identity crumble, titles, roles, opinions, and realizing they were never truly you. A snake shedding its skin, raw and exposed, not yet knowing what the new form is. A storm passing through a once still lake, disturbing every reflection. The moment just before a butterfly emerges, when the caterpillar has dissolved completely and nothing recognizable remains.
Yeah. Watching pieces of your identity crumble. Titles, roles, opinions, and realizing they were never truly you.
Yeah.
And that is where I have been deeply for the last 2 months and for the last couple of years, really, but the last 2 months intense. Um, and I think you're kind of in that place too, where it's like your role at the job that pays money.
Mm-hmm.
um, you are so uncomfortable, like you are trying to shed your skin, but it's just the ego keeps pulling you back into the old identity
Yeah,
and
ego,
beliefs.
money, many things.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's
But
it,
that's all
it
about the fear, right? Fear about money, money,
hmm
money.
but it's
Yeah.
interesting. I look at this and I think of it in context of that tower moment.
Yeah.
You know, um, when my first wife passed years ago, I I think that was a point of a bit of an ego death because it didn't matter what job I had, it didn't matter how much money I made, it didn't none of those things mattered,
Yeah.
right? They had no influence, no impact at all on,
On her
what was
living.
going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, when she passed, I kind of looked at it and I thought back, in retrospect as we all do, and realized that these roles that I was playing, these ego archetypes that I was playing, I mean, they didn't benefit my life. I
No.
mean, yes, the money was nice, but getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to drive to Toronto and making sure I was home by 8 p.m. every night,
Yep. To at least
that's
kiss your kids goodnight.
to kiss my
Yeah.
kids goodnight before they fell asleep. Yeah,
Yeah.
that that wasn't a good life. Working 7 days a week for 6 months in a row, so no days off for whatever that is, 183 days or whatever. You know, like those aren't good or conducive to a good life.
No.
And so, I look at things like that, those tower moments, and our hope is that people don't always have to have the tower moments. They can do work and avoid having you know, those moments in order to find some transition. So,
Mm-hmm. For sure.
anyways, sorry, I went on a little bit there.
Well, that's all right.
Um,
So, what it feels like. So you said what it looks like. I'm telling you what it feels like. Disorientation. Who am I now? It becomes the question that echoes louder than any answer. You get grief. You mourn versions of yourself that once kept you safe, even if they no longer serve. Uh, Boy, I could go on about that one for a long time.
mhm.
Fear and emptiness. The ego fears dying. It whispers lies like you're losing everything, but in truth, you are gaining everything. So yeah, like when you attempt to break out of one of these masks, whether you no longer are drawn to being the director anymore, and like the income is not that important, and you finally realize that you have to make a change, you're going to go through grief. You're going to mourn these versions of yourself that once thought this was so bloody important to have a title and to make this money. And yeah, money is wonderful, but we
Mhm.
were taught that there was only one way to get it, and that was to work hard. And
Yep.
that's part of the ego death, is understanding that that is not what is important, and that is not the only way to make money. Um, so fear and emptiness, like I said, the ego fears dying. Liberation. After the contraction, so contraction is when you go into fear and you pull your energy in. Liberation. After the contraction, a breath so wide and full it fills lifetimes. You feel the soul expand. So once you shed that identity, you feel liberated, and you're able to like actually, you know, rest. Stillness. A sacred silence falls over your inner world. The need to prove, to perform, to please dissipates. That's where I'm at right now. I am not, yeah, I'm not chatty Cathy anymore. I might be on here, but in groups of
No,
people
you're
that I've
not.
known my whole life, I kind of sit back quietly and do more of the observing and less of the talking. Um, Peace without reason. So nothing has changed outwardly, but you are no longer fighting yourself. It's almost like you've come to an understanding that, yeah, you know what? It's okay for me to change. It's okay for me to shift gears and realize there's something more out there and not feel shameful about wanting to go after it. So, yeah, and that takes us to the soul's perspective on ego death. Then I'm,
And the ego death is not an ending; it's a return. It is the space where your soul finally whispers, "Thank you, but I'll take it from here." And yes, you may cry. Yes, you may get angry. You may feel like you're dying. But what is dying is the illusion, the tight shell, the false self. What is being born is the radiant, untamed, divine you. You are not lost. You are becoming. Again, it's like if you could have everything you have right now and be completely at peace with your life and feel good about your life versus winning $50,000 in the lottery. I mean, having that peace, that is what we are talking about.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily changing your circumstances and becoming more wealthy, although abundance is something we will talk about in the future.
Yeah.
But it's about being able to gain that peace with yourself and who you are.
Yeah. And then the next question I asked was, can you go through more than one ego death? And of course, the answer was yes, because that, it would just be too easy to only have one.
Although it would be convenient if it
Yeah.
was just, yep, no, I did that last
If
year.
you could bundle it,
I'm perfectly good now.
Yeah.
Everything is solved.
ascension has happened. Woo! So yes, and each one brings you closer to your essence. So apparently there's a few deaths we have to go through here. Ego death is not a one-time event. Sorry, guys. It's a spiral, a sacred unraveling. Each time you shed another layer of illusion, the soul steps forward more fully. A layer of illusion. And we are layered and layered and layered with illusions from the day we step foot on this earth. And then we step foot into our little soul, which houses all the karmic shit from all of our past lives too. So we still have to deal with that stuff. So the ego is like an onion, just like Shrek said, he's an onion, and is made of many veils. So each layer of the onion is like a veil that's coming off. And spirit, in infinite compassion, does not strip them all at once.
Well, I'd hope not. I mean, if you think about peeling an onion, the more you peel, the more it smells
more
a
you
little
cry.
and the more you cry. So if you peeled the whole thing at once, that would be,
Yeah.
one stinky cry fest.
Yeah, and you know what? It's hard enough just doing layers sometimes. You guys know this. Like, if it was all stripped away at once, our nervous system would be screwed. Like we'd be a big jelly pile of mess. So yeah, you may experience ego death in different phases or themes. And Jay's going to start with the first
So like
one.
the identity death.
Yeah.
So the loss of who you thought you were. Careers, roles, titles, belief systems, all fall away. This is often the first great shattering. It feels like waking up in a life that no longer fits. And I think I kind of talked a little bit about that earlier with the tower moment that I had had.
Yeah. Yes, and you know it takes several tower moments sometimes to get us to wake us up and to push us into that next thing. Number 2, according to the Council of Light, is the spiritual ego death. This one is subtler and more humbling. After awakening, the ego can sneak back in wearing robes of light. Yep. And it says, I'm more evolved. I know better. When this layer dies, compassion returns, humility leads. You release needing to be right and return simply to being love. So that's where you stop trying to push your wisdom on everybody, and you stop trying to
Stop trying to fix everybody.
yeah, you stop trying to fix and assert and effort and all of that stuff, and you just release the need to be right. You sit in your wisdom. When people come to you, that's when you can speak your truth, and not a moment before, because they're probably not ready to hear it. So spiritual ego death is one of the sneakier ones,
Mm-hmm.
I find.
I find driving is a good check on it as well.
So I had a funny incident. Oh my God, I can't believe you said that. So, like a week ago, I was driving somewhere on a country road and coming up to a side, like a side street, and this guy comes racing up to the stop sign, and I am like, I'm doing 80 kilometers an hour coming up. And no, he's not waiting. He goes in front of me. My ego took over. I have been trying so hard to master my ego, and that day was not a good day for that. And I flipped him the bird, and I sped up, and I came up beside him, and he sped up because he wouldn't let me pass, and it became a racetrack on that country road. And all of a sudden,
Oh,
I went, "What am I doing? This is not me." So I backed off. I pulled over and I went, "I'm sorry." And then I
oh
was
my,
like, who am I saying sorry to? It's only me.
exactly.
It's only me. I don't even need to apologize to myself. I just need to get back into the proper frequency and
Hmm.
say, Joe, you had a momentary slip, but you caught it, and here you are back, raising your frequency again. And that's what mastery is about, and that's what this spiritual death
Hmm.
is about. It's spiritual ego death, not spiritual death. But
Yeah,
yeah,
spiritual ego death.
yeah.
Geez,
So
I was just talking about when you come up behind a tractor, because again, we're,
farm
obviously
country.
driving through farm country, and it's like I hold it, I hold myself, and I say, okay, Jay, it's all right. He's just going a few fields, or she's just going a few fields. It's okay that we're going this slow. They're taking up 2/3 of the road. There's no safe way to pass them,
And they feed us.
and they feed us.
Yes.
So, you know what? It's okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all good. The heart death. That's a
Oh,
you.
yes. So, the heart death. When you're asked to love without condition, without attachment, without rescue, this death clears codependency, martyrdom, and people pleasing. It can feel lonely, but it births divine sovereignty.
Hmm.
It's that's very deep.
Yeah, when you're asked to love without condition and without attachment and without rescue. Um.
So
Yeah.
that's as an example, offering love to the guy who was driving like a idiot
Mm-hmm.
and cut you off.
Yep. In his very expensive fancy car, which immediately I went in. I went into judgment.
Hmm.
I, like my whole ego when he needed to get in front of me and his day was so much more important than mine, my ego just jumped right in, and all was, yeah, and it was like, oh.
I understand.
What? Yeah, sorry, I'm clearly not quite over it. Anyway, where were we, honey?
The body death.
The body death.
Yeah,
Ooh, I don't.
that's you.
Ooh. When the physical vessel begins to shift and old ways of eating, moving, medicating, or relating to the body no longer resonate. Oh boy, are we feeling this right now. This death opens the temple within. So, I don't know about you guys, but for the last, I don't know, 3, 4 days, so much inflammation, like more than
Hmm.
even on my worst days I'm used to.
Very tired.
And just
Very tired as well.
stiff joints. Like, yeah, a lot of pain. I cannot eat the way I used to eat. And in fact, 10 years ago, I noticed that. And I removed gluten, although it sneaks in still. Wine,
Hmm.
terrible inflammation after drinking wine. And wine was one of my staples. Wine is part of my ego
Well,
death.
who doesn't enjoy a glass or two of red wine with a steak?
Yep.
And
Yeah. And sugar.
again, unfortunately, any of that sort of stuff, it does impact both of us. If I have sugar, I swell up.
Mm-hmm.
Gluten, swell up.
Yeah.
All those things
Yeah.
affect me.
Yeah. So yeah, this is where we're at. So it's not actual, it's called the body death. It's not actual physical death, but it is the death of the way you used to carry on.
Hmm.
Can't eat the way I used to. Got to move more, got to move in different ways because the old ways hurt. Yeah. So those things are also part of it.
Yeah, and definitely being physical is an important part of your life.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, that's a whole nother episode. The ancestral ego death.
Mm.
When you finally release inherited trauma and identity, I am not my mother's fear. I am not my father's silence. And this one ripples through lifetimes and frees entire lineages.
Yes.
And, again, there's many books written on ancestral trauma, on managing and treating ancestral trauma. And, again, we have the opportunity to affect and improve that, not just for us, but for our ancestors, for our children.
Mm-hmm.
And, rewriting some of those, you know,
Those patterns.
those scripts
Yeah.
that, that we inherited and that we potentially have passed on to our children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right?
and I've mentioned this in past weeks, but I've gone through a lot of that also recently, and so are my clients. So a lot of my clients coming to me now are star seeds who are here to heal their ancestral line. And these star seeds have been through some of the hardest experiences in this lifetime because they chose that in order to move past the patterns ingrained in them from their ancestral line in order to look at it and then finally release it. And so that's a really big one because that's all part of our identity too, is where who we were born into, like the families and the patterns and the beliefs. And when we start realizing that 95% of all of that is bullshit, then it's like, oh my god, now who am I?
Mhm.
If my family wasn't as perfect as I thought they were, oh my gosh, where does that leave me? So that's a big one too.
It is.
Yeah. The last one is the void death. God, I swear I've been through all of these. Perhaps the most sacred of all, when everything goes quiet. No answers, no rush, no attachments, only silence, presence. It is the resting place of the soul before resurrection. Interesting. It's kind of like when Jesus was in the tomb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not a big, not a big religious person, but I do love my mentor, Yeshua, or Jeshua, or Jesus, or, whatever handle he goes by in your world. Um, yeah, so it is that sacred quiet, that calm before the big transformation.
Well, and, it's interesting because, when we look at these, you've said, well, I feel like I've gone through all of them. And I'm sure you have. I think many people have.
And
Because
yeah,
just coming back to the onion analogy that you raised earlier, it's layers. And so we go through it,
like a
and
spiral.
and then
Yep.
we go through it again.
Yep. And we go deeper.
And there
And we go
is,
deeper. Yep.
yes, there is an end, I assume, but it is a continuum, and we do keep continuing to circle through and peel back these layers
Yep.
and go deeper.
Yep. Yeah. Um, yeah, each ego death is a rebirth in a small way. It's another layer peeled back. You do not become less, you become truer. You are not losing yourself, you're meeting your eternal self. So, yes, you may go through many ego deaths, and after each one, the light that rises is less filtered, more luminous, and more you. Yeah. So it has it's not an easy process, and if you don't know what's happening to you, it can be very confusing, and you might be reaching for the antidepressants and or the alcohol or the weed or whatever, and no shame, because God knows I've had my
Well,
dalliances with all of it.
we've all done it.
um and so just remember, like, oh, there's more to this. What is happening to me right now? Ask questions and find the people like us or others who can answer those questions for you on a deeper spiritual level, because not all of this stuff can be solved with drugs. And
Well,
it only dampens it.
I would suggest none of it can be solved with drugs.
Yeah.
It can
Sorry,
potentially
you're
be,
right.
I, it can potentially be, postponed.
I meant pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, well, those too.
I'm kidding.
But, yeah, I mean, it. I think really having a support network, having people you can talk to, having information at your tips of your fingers,
Fingertips.
um, you know, And taking time with yourself is really kind of what makes that difference.
Yeah. Yeah, it's being kind to yourself, and get rid of the shame. Seriously, work through the shame, because
Yeah, we're harder
that
on
is a
ourselves
really
than
low
anyone is.
frequency that we were taught to have to keep us under control.
Yeah.
So shame needs to be gone. Guilt needs to be gone. Um, yeah, and that's all part of the ego death too, is releasing those lower frequency feelings.
Yeah, but if anyone does have a way to, change what they did in the past, I would appreciate hearing how that's done.
Yeah.
So, to
Yeah.
Joanne's point, we cannot change it. We need to look at it, we need to accept it, and it's okay to live differently now,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, it is. It is. So next week we look at forgiveness, because forgiveness is a really big part of releasing some of these
Mm-hmm.
layers of the onion. Yeah, so I thank you all very much for joining us this evening. And I wish you all an amazing week and lots of healing. And if you're anywhere near the heat waves that are coming through North America right now, do your best to stay cool. And I really, really am grateful that you have joined us.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. I don't know how to turn it off. Bye. We're still here.